Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. This is episode numero cuatro. There's a little fact for you. I bet you didn't know that I speak fluent Spanish, did you? I don't, but it wasn't a bad attempt, was it? Let's be honest. I'm really looking forward to this episode. It's on breaking limiting beliefs, and the reason I'm really looking forward to this episode is because when I do my Unlock Your Potential 2-day workshop, and I run that workshop, which is a nice little subtle plug there. Check the link in the comments. So when I run this workshop, it's one of my favourites because it's one of the favourites of people that attend the workshop, because it's where change really starts to take place. We go through some stuff, but this is sort of this hour and a half that we go through this particular part of the workshop is literally life-changing for people. And I hope that on the back of this podcast, it will be certainly impactful and certainly get you thinking differently, and then hopefully acting differently, and therefore getting different results, which is the whole objective of why I'm doing the podcast. So I'm going to start with a little story. So this is a story all about how... No, I'm kidding. But it is a story, and it's the story of the elephant. Now, in Thailand, they have a simple way to keep an elephant docile and under control. And the way they do that is when the elephant is a baby, the keeper ties the baby elephant with a strong rope to a tree. And of course, that free-spirited, uninhabited baby elephant tries to escape, but is held back by the rope. Now, the baby elephant will try and break free time and time again, tugging hard at the rope, but it won't break. And then after a while, the baby elephant is completely exhausted by its futile efforts, and once its free spirit is broken, it believes there's no hope, so it just yields and it accepts its assigned position and situation. Now, the hopelessness and learned helplessness stays in the elephant's unconscious mind even when it grows to be an adult. So when the adult elephant has the ability to snap the rope with just a casual tug, it won't make an attempt. It's so strong, the limiting belief is so strong that it's been etched into the unconscious mind of the elephant. So are there any limiting beliefs that are holding you back like the elephant? Are there any setbacks in maybe your childhood or early adulthood that you still have a hold on you like the baby elephant's rope? Whenever you balk at a challenge, ask yourself, are you being held back by a limiting belief or assumption that's been carried over from maybe a bad experience from years ago, or just an unfortunate episode from a long time ago? Is it time for you to break free of that imaginary bond of that limiting belief? What do you think? Well, I'm sure you've seen the images, and you know the type of images that I mean, of these elephants that are held on by these little ropes. And it's so true, you know, these beliefs that can have an impact on us. And I think it's worthwhile kicking off with what is a belief. So a belief is just a feeling of certainty about what something means. And these beliefs, they control our behaviours. They can be conscious, they can be unconscious. And like I say, they'll often stem from something we've experienced, seen or heard, or felt certainly a lot of emotion about from yesteryear. And then we just repeat that to ourselves over and over again until we feel so certain. The way that I like to describe it is, if you can imagine a table, and a table that has 4 legs, the belief is the tabletop, but the legs of the table are reinforcement. Okay, they're the reinforcement, and what happens is the more reinforcement you have, the more proof, if you like, to yourself that belief is true. So what's important to understand is, firstly, beliefs can change, okay, and we can change them in a way that has a positive impact from us. And basically there's three ways to create that change and to change that belief. The first thing is to get leverage. So get a reason why, find a reason why it's going to be beneficial for you to be able to create that change. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, what if I can't? Well, you have to find a way. You must find a way. One of the ways that I do this with my clients is I take them through something called the Scrooge Process. So if people want to create change, one of the first things that I'll do is take them through the Scrooge Process. So I'll get them to identify what it is that they really want, and then ask them what it is that they know that they're doing that's preventing them from achieving what it is that they want. And then I keep drawing more and more and more of the reasons why they're doing things or not doing, or the things they're doing or they're not doing that are getting in the way. And then I take them through, like I say, what I call the Scrooge process, which is ask them what it's cost them in the past. So right now, if you've got a belief that you want to change, that you're not changing, I just want you to think for a second, what is it costing you? What has it cost you to date? What don't you have? Or maybe did you have that you don't have now as a result of you having this particular belief? Then I ask them how it's affecting them now. So how's it affecting them mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically? What are the consequences that you're experiencing right now as a result of you having this belief that you want to change, that you haven't changed? And then finally, I ask them what's going to happen in the future if they don't change. So if they carry on having this belief, if they carry on having this way of thinking, what's going to happen in the future? And quite often, that's enough pain to get them to then make a decision that they want to change. Because most of us, we all know someone that has had hit rock bottom. You know, they've hit rock bottom and then they've decided to change. But you don't have to actually hit rock bottom. You can experience rock bottom as in your imagination, and that in itself can be enough to make you change. And that's one of the things that I do. I will push people to a point where there's so much pain in even thinking about that experience of what will happen, what has happened, what is happening, what will happen in the future, that they decide to make that change. So that's part of the interrupt or the leverage. So what we're effectively looking to do is, like I say, create a new pattern. And it's really important to remember that when we're looking to create a new belief, we do want to replace an old belief. Yeah, we don't just want to stop doing something, we want to replace it. I like to think of it a lot of the time like having a garden or having a garden that's got weeds in it. Right, you can chop that weed, and we all know what will happen if you chop the weed. It's just going to grow back. But you could pull the weed out, and then you've just got soil there, and eventually another weed's probably going to grow back in its place. But what we can do is we can remove the weed, we can replace it with a flower, and then we maintain the flower. We make sure that if there are any other small weeds coming through, we get them when they're small. We make sure that we nurture the flower, we trim it where it needs to be trimmed, and we enable it to grow into being a beautiful flower that makes the garden look wonderful. And that's really what I like to think of is we're doing with the garden of our mind when we're working with our belief system. So that's what we'd be doing to create a new pattern. Now, it's worth bearing in mind there's two types of beliefs. Okay, there's two types of beliefs. There's what I call global beliefs, which a global belief gives us an uncertainty of how we should feel, what we should expect from ourselves, from life, from people, and then we have rules. Okay, so a global belief is something that's sort of overarching, and then we have rules. And our rules are the beliefs that we have about what has to happen for us to feel certain ways. So, again, there's lots of different examples of this, but it's always worth bearing in mind that it can be that other people have, and this not worth just bearing in mind for you, but worth bearing in mind for other people, is that lots of people have their own sets of rules, ways of doing things. So when I spoke about values in the previous episode, if you haven't listened to it, go back to it. It's episode 2. Is I talk about means values and end values, and with beliefs it's similar. You have sort of your global beliefs, and then you have your rules. Your rules are sort of your means values, are like your means values, and your global beliefs are like your end values. In addition to that, there's assumptions. So an assumption is something that is accepted as true, or you to be certain that it's going to happen, but without proof. Okay, so a lot of the beliefs that we deem to be facts are actually assumptions a lot of the time. So the best way to deal with that is to challenge your assumption by testing it. And you can test these assumptions, which will enable you to break the assumption and to be able to move forward. Now, in terms of some limiting beliefs, let's start with some limiting beliefs that people have. And some of the ones that come up a lot. Now, you might be someone right now that isn't even aware that you have limiting beliefs. But these are typically the 7 limiting beliefs that I've experienced that people who are not achieving success, in inverted commas, however you define success, the success that they desire, and they either are doing it in a conscious state or in a subconscious state. So I'm going to go through these with you, and I want you to be 100% honest and answer them if you feel that you have any of these limiting beliefs. So the first one is thinking that you're not good enough. And that's normally born from a childhood situation where someone's told you that you wasn't good enough, but it carried out through life due to that little voice telling you that you aren't good enough. At other points throughout your life, other people have maybe reinforced that limiting belief by saying the same thing to you. So therefore, you still have that little voice telling you that you're not good enough. But meanwhile, you're taking all the action that you can. And ultimately, that's like having one foot on the accelerator but the other foot on the brake. You don't feel you deserve it because you don't feel that you're good enough. The second core limiting belief that comes up a lot is that people think no one likes them. Now, we've all got flaws. I've got flaws. You've got flaws. We've all got them. But flaws make a diamond. And some people are more willing to point out those flaws, and sometimes at the worst times. Now, you might be thinking that maybe you're not well spoken, or you don't have perfect manners, or you feel that you don't belong. It can be easy to assume lots of these things, particularly assuming that no one likes you. Maybe just because you don't have a large group of friends or whatever else it might be. But most of the like a lot of limiting beliefs, no one likes me, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling belief, because if you believe that no one likes you, you don't deserve friends or relationships, you don't attempt to have them, and therefore you don't. So it becomes self-fulfilling. The third limiting belief, or core limiting belief, that I experience is that people don't want to be rejected. Again, it's very common. It affects people from all walks of life. And it might exist in a student, for example, who's fearful of asking the teacher for assistance, or a worker asking a colleague for help. And obviously then you take it into relationships, like if someone wants to ask someone to go out on a date, for example. But this fear, this limiting belief is primarily driven by fear. Okay, so again, it's fear, because no one wants to be rejected, and they fear the rejection, but quite often the fear of the rejection is larger than what's actually going on. So we can choose to have a different meaning with what's going on there. The fourth of the 7 core limiting beliefs is that it's impossible. Okay, now there's things that are possible, and there's things that we believe that are impossible for us. So quite often these can be different. So it's worth bearing in mind that, I'll rephrase that. There's things that we believe that are impossible, and things that we believe that are impossible for us. So these can quite often be different. So you might think that the goals that you want to achieve are impossible, and you put them in a category because you feel that you lack the knowledge or the skills or the resources. You don't feel that you have them to be able to accomplish them. But quite often that's actually connected to the very first limiting belief, that you don't feel good enough. So this is one of the ways that you can sort your goals and tasks, and you can do that, or quite often we'll do that subconsciously, and we'll sort them into can do and can't do's in our head, where we think we can't do something, or we think we can do something. It happens on a subconscious level automatically, and what will happen is that will cause us to reject ideas before they're even considered. So it's being able to start to look at things from different ways. And again, I'm going to touch on some ways to how to create these new limiting beliefs, or to overcome these limiting beliefs in due course. Another one is tunnel vision. Now, I've struggled with this a lot myself. So people that have tunnel vision as a limiting belief believe that there's only one solution to a particular problem, or there's only one way to perform a certain task. So for example, you may think that the only way to make money is to get a good education, get a good job, and then work your way up the corporate ladder, for example. But on the other hand, there's lots of self-employed people that are making excellent money. Now, one of the ways to know, one of the ways that I tend to know if someone's got tunnel vision as a limiting belief, and one of the ways that you can recognize it in yourself, is that your response to something when someone makes a suggestion to do something differently starts with "yeah, but." So someone will say you could do this, and you go, yeah, but and that's a really good indicator. So you'll have this belief typically if you believe that things can only happen one way for you, and there has to be a specific way. But what we want to do is be able to open the possibility of other ways becoming available. It's effectively being flexible. In sort of the new NLP world, we talk about keeping flexible, having flexibility, and that's flexibility in our thinking, actions, so on and so forth. Number 6 in the 7 core limiting beliefs is that it's not going to work anyway. So this is one of the most damaging limiting beliefs that anyone can have, and sadly it's really prevalent with so many people. These are the people that are constantly seeing the worst, the pessimists, if you like, and really what they're actually trying to do is protect themselves. Yeah, they're protecting themselves from getting their hopes up. And these people tend to believe that whatever they will do will fail, so they don't try it, or they give it a half-hearted try, because then they can go, well, I didn't try my hardest, or yeah, well, it wasn't going to work, so I didn't bother. And again, it's self-fulfilling, because they fail not because it was something that was actually going to happen, but again, they just believed it was going to be the case. And so it can, and I get it, it can be hard not to be skeptical when you're trying something new. But again, if you continue to leave this limiting belief to remain, you'll repeatedly fail, and therefore you're failing because you're not even trying, and therefore you'll be reinforcing that belief. And then the final one is, I'm not special. And this belief is or when I say I'm not special, it could be I'm not, and you could insert anything, right? But special I'm using as a label term. And this is the basic belief that success, however you define success, requires some sort of special quality or spark or whatever it is that, like I say, is the label that you don't have. And it's maybe the feeling that you're just average and it's too much to expect, and that you can't accomplish anything great. This belief that you're maybe not the chosen one, or whatever it is, that you don't have these special things, enables you to escape the responsibilities for being able to make the right choices for your life. You're ultimately responsible for your success, but with this limiting belief, it can be easy to find something or someone or whatever it might be to blame, rather than making the choices that are required to bring about what it is that you really, really want. And again, it's another sad one. So I want you to think, what is it that maybe you have one of these or a few of these, and then when we come to it in due course, we're going to look at how you can you can start changing these limiting beliefs. Now, before we go on to changing limiting beliefs, I want to talk about the 2 types of people in this world, because there's 2 types of people. I don't mean male and female. I mean the 2 types of people in this world. There are see it to believe it people, and there are believe it to see it people. So what I mean by that is the see it to believe it people, they're the people that have to have seen someone else do something for them to believe it's possible. And then there's the believe it to see it people, the people that have the visions, the crazy ideas, the visionaries, whatever you want to call them, and then they create it and they make it a reality. Now, personally, I think it's best to be a believe it to see it person, to have the belief that you can make something real. And there's no better person that did this than a chap called Roger Bannister. Now, you may or may not be familiar with Roger Bannister, but he was the individual that did something impossible, or what most people believed to be impossible, which was for a human being to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. But back in 1954, on the 6th of May, Roger Bannister broke that imposing belief barrier that so many people had when he ran a 4-minute mile. In fact, he ran it less than 4 minutes. He ran it in 3 minutes 59.4 seconds. But what's really interesting is how he went about doing that. So he got himself to achieve that task that so many people deemed impossible, not just by practicing it and physically practicing it and going out and constantly running over and over again, but he did it by rehearsing the event in his mind. he conquered it in his mind first. So therefore he believed in it so much in his mind's eye. He created it so much in his mind's eye that he was eventually able to do it. He did it with so much emotional intensity that he created these vivid references to become unquestioned commands to his nervous system, which ultimately produced the result. So Roger was, without fail, a believe it to see it person. And so many people don't realise that this was the greatest aspect of the breakthrough. Was when he did it, other people went on to do that. His experience provided them with references that were so strong, it created a sense of certainty that if he could do it, then they could do it. But what come first was the certainty he created in his mind's eye. So remember I gave you the example earlier of the table and the different references? He'd created the references in his mind that were so strong that he created that belief himself. It was true self-belief. And do you know what happened? After he did that same year, bearing in mind it had never been done. No one had ever run a 4-minute mile. In that same year that he did it, over 300 other people went and did it. But those people were see it to believe it people. And now the 4-minute barrier has been broken by thousands of people. I believe that the current mile time is actually 3 minutes and 43 seconds, 0.13. So yeah, it just shows what's possible when you apply your level of belief. So as you know from my previous episodes, if you've been listening to previous episodes, I like to make these podcasts beneficial to you in a not just a way where you're hearing stuff, but to give you some practical tools that you can take away and you can apply and you can use to be able to benefit yourself as well. So with an episode called Breaking Limiting Beliefs, you wouldn't think that I was going to let you go the whole episode without actually giving you some practical tools to break some limiting beliefs. Now, I'm a big believer in if you treat the cause, the symptoms go in loads of different areas of life. And with beliefs, it's so important that we do exactly this. So I have a set of questions that I call root cause questions that enable you to get to the root cause of your belief. The thing that is maybe the layer below, the thing that's really stopping you from achieving what it is that you want to be doing. So these questions are really powerful for you. If there's something that you want to be achieving right now in life that you're not achieving, then you can go through and ask these questions. So question number 1 is, what are the words that best describe your biggest challenge right now, and how do you feel about it? The answer to that question is going to reflect what you're experiencing regarding a personal situation that's actually at the root cause of the thing that you want to go and achieve and you want to go and do. Question number 2 is, what is this challenge preventing you from doing or having? And the answer to question number 2 that represents one or more of the desires that are being blocked right now, obviously. Question number 3. If you allowed yourself to achieve these desires, what would you be? Now, if you allowed yourself, so this is question number 4, if you allowed yourself to be whatever you answered in number 3, what unpleasant situation could happen, and what would people think of you, and what would you think of yourself? Now, your answers to question number 4 will correspond with the harmful belief, the disempowering belief that's actually blocking you from meeting your own needs and achieving what it is that you really want to achieve. And this belief, the answer to number 4, is what will manifest in that in the form of that block for you. That's the thing that you're doing. You're subconsciously blocking yourself. And the answer to number 4 is the response that indicates the deep and profound need that's being blocked by that belief system. Okay, so once you've been able to unearth that belief that's blocking you from what you really want and need, you'll obviously have to work on it. Now, the first step is to acknowledge that at some point in your life, you decided to believe that was the case. okay, you thought that that belief would prevent you from suffering some sort of pain over and over. Okay, so that's it has served you for a period of time. Okay, once upon a time that belief served you, but the next step is to ask yourself, do you still need to believe this belief in order to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve? If the answer is yes, you've determined that that belief is still of use to you, and by all means you can continue to believe it, and you'll behave as you always have been. But obviously, if that's the case, don't expect anything to change in your life. You're the architect of your own life. The choice is yours. Okay, what you choose to believe. Now, just know that if you refuse to go towards what you really want, if you refuse to change this belief, then life's going to remain the same for you. If you've determined that your belief is still partly true, but it makes you unhappy, determine whether or not it's diminished in strength in the last few years. Has it been sort of whittling down? If it has, obviously it's going to be a lot easier to let go of. By doing so, you can know that the belief, obviously by letting go of this belief, you can know that the future is going to be much more beneficial. Now, like I said earlier, one of the things that's absolutely key when we change the belief, and I gave you the example of the garden, we don't just want to change that belief or stop that belief. We need to replace it with a new empowering belief to be able to take the steps that you want to take to achieve what it is that you want to do. So the best way to do this is write down with a pen and paper what is the belief that you've identified by doing the root cause questions. Another way of doing this is just writing down what disempowering beliefs, what beliefs have you had that have kept you from following through on your goals in the past. Like, I don't have enough time, I don't have the money, or it could be love equals pain. You know, there's lots of different options that you can think of. We've already established some of the pains that you've been going through, but if you need to and you want to go a layer deeper, you can identify what have the negative consequences been that you've already experienced as a result of this belief. And if you want to, you can do the Scrooge process here as well. Like I mentioned, what it's cost you in the past, how it's impacting you now, how it's going to impact you in the future, so you really create some leverage. And then the very last part is choosing to create a new empowering belief. So if it was love equals pain, then I can feel love at any time that I give it. Or if it's I don't have enough time, then it could be I can choose to prioritize my task differently. You know, you want to create something that's going to empower you, something that creates and opens up new opportunities for you and gives you the ability to create change in that respect. I want to just share with you one of the empowering beliefs that I've had that has made such a difference for me, and it's really helped me through the difficult times. So much so that I've actually got it printed on my desk and it's in a frame. And that is, there's no such thing as lack of resources, only a lack of resourcefulness. And that's so powerful, because how many of us have found ourselves in a situation whereby we have wanted to do something, but we've said, I don't have the time or the money or the insert whatever it is. Those resources are there, and yes, sometimes it's something that we might need, but there is a way of going about getting them if we're resourceful enough. So there's no such thing as lack of resources, only a lack of resourcefulness. I encourage you to introduce this as a belief into your psyche to enable you to progress, develop and grow and achieve what it is that you ultimately want to be achieving. Now, there's another little tool that I was going to give you guys, and I was umming and ahhing whether to do this because it's actually quite a difficult thing to do and explain via audio, but I'm going to give it a go because it's actually something that, again, when I run Unlock Your Potential, and have a subtle plug, guys, is something that people find really, really beneficial. So I'm going to cover it because by you listening to this podcast, I know you've got a thirst for personal development, and I want you to become aware of it. And the tool that I use is Gremlin Bashing. I've never actually called it Gremlin Bashing before, but I quite like the term, so that's what I'm going to call it now. It's called Gremlin Bashing, but let's talk about what a gremlin is. So a gremlin is a term that's used to describe the voice inside our head, or the individual inside our head, that produces those unwanted inner thoughts and states. And we can treat them as the enemy and sort of a pathological subpersonality, or we can treat it as an opportunity to understand and change. So what will happen, and happens over time, is you'll get to know your gremlins, that little voice in your head, and you'll learn to live easier with them. Like in darkness, they tend to shrink and cease to exist when light is present. So what we want to do is shine the torch of curiosity on them in a potent way, which enables us to lessen their influence. And by seeing them as a part of yourself that you want to communicate something, so if you choose to see them as something that is communicating something to you, you can choose to respect that intention but choose to do something differently. So a gremlin generally has an obsessive rightness, in the way that it always thinks that it's right. And you might notice this in the voice where it tells you, right, you've got to get it right this time, or you can never admit a mistake, you idiot. It might hiss in your ear that the other person's wrong, and make you want to know that you're right, and make them know that you're right. It may draw you into arguments. It may have loads of impacts on you that you don't really want to be a part of. So essentially, the gremlin is just a label that we're using to refer to any thought or voice or personality that you're dissatisfied with. Okay, so here's the thing to remember: a gremlin has a positive intention. They do want the best for us, yet their methods tend to be sort of hand-fisted or old-fashioned or maybe ineffective. So what we want to do is we want to look at identifying a way that we can change them, because all these gremlins are doing, these voices, they're voices that are coming from the subconscious, and we can choose to change them. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, what I encourage you to do is to get a pen and paper and draw a picture of what your gremlin looks like. So you're going to draw a picture of what your gremlin looks like, and draw it with all of the different modalities that you can think of. So how big it is, what color it is, whether it's heavy or light, whether it's multicolored, whether it's soft, whether it's hard, whether it's furry, whether it's scaly. You think of what this gremlin could look like. So effectively, like you're drawing like a caricature. You're drawing it as you would envisage it. Okay, facial features, you name it. But then what we're going to do is, the way that we change your gremlin is we make them fun. Okay, so you're going to take this gremlin that you've drawn, you're going to give it a name, a ludicrous name, whatever the name might be. Like, I'm not going to give a name, so I might offend some people with the names that I choose. But you're gonna pick a name for this gremlin, and then what you're going to do is you're going to start playing with this gremlin. So, for example, what I would recommend you do is you shrink the size of your gremlin. If it's got a loud, deep voice, you're going to turn the volume down and you're going to pump it full of helium so the voice goes really squeaky. You're going to make the gremlin maybe dance to your favourite music, or get the gremlin to do, what's that, floss, to get the gremlin doing flossing. Or if it's a really heavy gremlin, then you're going to make it really light and hold it on a string like you would a helium balloon. If it's really dark and scaly, you're going to maybe change the colour of it to something crazy like multicoloured or pink. You might give it a crazy hat. You might give it long, like nails, like as if it's had a manicure. You might give it high heels or dress it in a leopard skin outfit. Just make it look absolutely ridiculous. And then what you do is, whatever it is that gremlin normally says to you, I want you to envision the gremlin saying the exact same thing, but this time in the way that you've made it into the caricatured image, like the fun image that you've made of it. And what I can guarantee is that the gremlin won't have the same impact, the voice won't have the same impact that it once had, because we've scrambled it, we've changed it. And then what you can do is rename your gremlin at that point something ridiculous, like give it a ridiculous name that you might add on the end of it. Like, I remember a client I did this once called their gremlin Percy, and they called it Percy the Pansy, for example. So that's just something that you can do as a practical tool. Now, the very last thing that I want to go through with you is just some beliefs that you can have in order to be able to achieve success, however you define it. Now, I use the acronym here, RUFF PLC. So I'm going to run through them with you before we look at rounding up this podcast episode. So, R stands for responsibility. Whatever happens, take responsibility. You're always in control. And the reason you're always in control is you control your response to any event or situation. U stands for understand. You don't have to understand everything to be able to use everything. It's too easy to get caught up in wanting to know everything before you do something. I mean, a prime example of this is you don't know, or you might not necessarily know, certainly the majority of people might not know exactly how electricity works, but you still switch a light on every day. The first F is for, because life happens for you, not to you. You can choose to be the victor or not the victim. The second F, so when I said rough, by the way, this is an acronym RUFF, not rough, ROUGH. I do know how to spell a little bit, so you might be thinking, God, well, you don't know how to spell rough. So the second F is failure. There's no such thing as failure, only feedback. Learn from the things that haven't worked and keep trying. P is work is play. Make sure whatever you're doing, you can bring some fun into it and enjoy the journey. L is learn. Learn from people. People are your greatest resource, whether that's to learn from them or to enable them to help you. Use them. Make sure you use them. Use people. Enroll them into what it is you want to be doing. Like I said, whether it's to learn from them, whether it's to get them to help you to move forward. And then C, there's no success, which stands for commitment, because there's no success without commitment. You're going to have to commit. Come from a place of whatever it takes. I can, I will, I must make it happen. Whatever it is that you want to do. So, I hope you found this podcast episode useful. Like I say, I would love to learn from you what it is that you found beneficial. As always, please feel free to share what you've benefited from this podcast episode in the Make It Happen community. There'll be a link to it in the show notes. And I really look forward to you joining us at our future episodes. Again, please subscribe. One of our next episodes is going to be the very first interview that we are going to be doing on Make It Happen with Will Polston, which I'm really looking forward to as well. So have a great day, whatever it is you're up to. Apply the lessons in this podcast so you can break limiting beliefs and create a new opportunity for yourself. And remember, think differently, act differently, get different results. Until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.